Well, my name is Ken Oguss, and I am a storyteller and a videographer. But before that, I was a puppeteer. I'd been a librarian for almost 10 years, and I was looking for a very different kind of work, and I had had puppeteer training back in graduate school, and there was a job opening at Riley Hospital for Children. And they wanted somebody to be the puppeteer who would bring their mascot, J.W. Mouse, after J.W. Riley, to life for the pediatric patients and their families. And I went in there, and there had been women doing the mouse before, and they just could never get the voice. And so I had training, and I slid the puppet on and went, "Hey, so when is the fun going to start?" You know, I was up there in character. And part of what they wanted me to do was to do the puppetry and host a number of different programs and kind of represent this closed-circuit TV station that we had in the hospital. Now, JW was bigger than life size. And he had two hands. He was wearing a child's set of pajamas. So they had, cartoon characters on them. And you could only move one hand. You could move his left hand, his right hand. His left hand was attached with a piece of string, so if you tipped his head, that hand would move. So he had limitations. But with that puppet, I went on to interview any number of people. So I would talk to people from the library, talk to people who would come as guests to Riley Hospital, and we had children in the audience. So it was really kind of a cool thing going on there. But one day it was suggested to me that we should interview Gary Miller, who was the hospital administrator, and Gary has cerebral palsy and is a little bit difficult to understand and does walk in a strange fashion. And I had not really had much contact with somebody who was so different. And a day or so before the program, we had everything arranged. I had some questions set up for Gary, and I went to the head of the Child Life Department, Jan Jett, and I said, "Jan, I've got some concerns. I'm just not, how should I handle this interview with Gary?" And she said, "Ken, just talk to him like anybody else. He's very good at that." I thought, okay, I'll do that. So the day of the program came up, we loaded up our equipment. We had cameras down in a playroom, and about 20 different children showed up, and some of them were in red wagons with IV bottles hanging down, and some had their eyes open, were sedated. So a wide variety of cases, but I always treated them as children. I never looked at what was wrong with them or what their illness was. And Gary came in and sat down. We started the show. And JW comes up and he turns and looks at Gary and says, "Well, hey, Gary, how you doing?" And Gary says in his own interesting voice, he reached forward to shake JW's hand. But JW's right hand doesn't move. But Gary didn't miss a beat. He simply extended his left hand and shook with JW. That was the hand that JW could actually move with my help. And the interview was great. And we just talked about what it was like to be in a big hospital like that, and the kids had questions for him. And when we were finished, and the kids had left, and we're packing the equipment up, I looked at Gary, and he said, "I want to talk to JW again." And so I slipped the mouse back on, and he looked right into JW. He's not looking at me, he's looking at the mouse. Looked at JW, and he said, "JW, I want you to remember that beneath the fur and the strings, we're all human beings." And that is my story.